everybody. Today's little project is going to be making a nice big mixing bowl, something you're going to use in your kitchen, hopefully for years and years. We can make it thick enough. I've been keeping the process of centering on these videos just because I know a lot of people have trouble with it. So if I can give you any instruction that helps, I thought I'd keep those on. You know, we got the bat nice and wet. We flip the bat to make sure we've got the crown up. If you've got the crown down, it makes a pain in the butt. So this is 5 pounds of EM whiteware without grog. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a nice big mixing bowl. A nice big heavy-duty mixing bowl that you can climb a spoon around in, and it's not going to hurt it. You're going to look good, hopefully it'll look good, and stay in our kitchen for a while. There's two schools of thought. I'm still working with this great big boil on my hand, by the way, which is a lot of fun. Burnt myself really good on the kiln the other day. Anyhow, there's two schools of thought about making bowls. One is to go right straight at it, and the other is to go with the classic kind of conical wall shape up, keeping the upper portions really, really, really thick, so that as you spread the bowl out, it's got enough clay to cover the wall thickness. I'm kind of the second camp. I like to kind of keep the thing nice and under control. I find that if I run into something down the road as I'm going straight for the bowl shape, that it can, especially if you work the clay a lot, it can pretty easily get out of control and collapse on you. So again, you know, if you're taking classes someplace and they tell you, well, to go right for it, maybe they've got a trick that I don't know, but I sure seem to have better luck if I try to wait and go for it later. Okay, so one of the things that I want to talk about today too is a lot of people that have trouble. I think the biggest trouble that I've ever seen when I've been trying to teach somebody how to do this is wheel speed. I center better at a quicker wheel speed, yet I pull better at a slower wheel speed. So it's all a matter of whatever. But like right here where I'm gonna drive in and kind of make my center hole, I'm gonna try a different technique so you guys can kind of see a different method of getting in there. And then again, where this is going to be a nice big thick bowl, I'm leaving myself a good 3/8 of an inch from the top of the bat to the bottom of my clay here. And it's gonna have a pretty good sized foot on it. So I'm just basically pulling right straight out. Another thing is always you never want to like stop an action and jerk away. If you stop and pull your hand away too quickly, it'll leave the clay out of balance. So you always want to kind of stop, hold, and then release. So where I'm going to do a bowl, I want to kind of keep my edges rounded. I don't really want that square 90-degree edge. I want more of a rounded edge. So I'm kind of keeping it rounded here, but I'm still compressing the base really well. Just pushing down to make sure that everything's going to be nice and solid down there so we don't get a split. Now this is where the wheel speed comes in. I'm going to clean the skirt so where we don't have any kind of a ramp that'll throw my hand when I'm trying to pull up or anything. I'm going to clean the bat off, the wheel head off. I'm going to wet the clay, and as I wet the clay, I'm going to reduce the wheel speed by at least a half. And then again, we're going to go for the cone shape, but we're only going to cone up about that tall. That's about all we're going to go on that wall. That wall is going to remain nice and thick so that when we pull that bowl out and shape it, it doesn't have time to get unstable and fall apart on us, yet it's got enough wall thickness that if we, like I said, clang a spoon around in it or something, it can take the beating. So all I'm doing is just kind of pulling and keeping a nice thick wall. And where I've got that rounded at the bottom down here, I've got a lot of clay cupped under this skirt right here. So I'm going to try to drive that skirt in a little bit and try to lift that clay up into the wall. There we go. There we go. Now you can see that lift. So the thing about a bowl is unlike most pottery that we throw, our bottom isn't going to expand out as much. So our bottom is actually going to be, as we pull this up and keeping the wall straight, the top is actually going to be super heavy, and the bottom is going to be actually the thickness that we want. So it's kind of an upside down pot, really, and that's why wheel speed is so important. People who try to throw, they don't keep it in a cone, they don't control their wheel speed, they've got too much weight up here, the centrifugal force takes them out, and then pretty soon they don't even have a good platter. It just falls apart and it's hitting on everything. So wheel speed, I just can't tell you enough how important it is to keep that wheel speed nice and even to where you can control what you want to do. That's why, I think that's why when I've taught in the past and I've had the opportunity to teach on a kick wheel, a kick wheel is kind of a pain in the butt to use because you're constantly having to jar your body around to keep the wheel going, and it can throw your pottery around. But it really teaches you, clean the skirt up, get that little bit off so I don't get thrown. But the great thing about a kick wheel is it really teaches you right off the bat how to maintain a wheel speed. Okay, so now we're really upside down here. We're really super thick up here on top, and we're really nice and thin down here. I'm going to clean that skirt up one more time because we're not going to see it now. And then I'm just going to take some water out of the bottom. If water sits in the bottom for too long, it'll start breaking down the clay. So I've seen people that will not clean the water out of their bottom of their bowl, and they put it up on the shelf. They're all done with it until they're ready to put the foot ring back on it. The next day, all that water is sat in the bottom of that pot, and they don't have anything worth anything. They've got a tube. They've got a piece of pipe. Okay, so we've got everything nice and wet. We've got everything nice and thin. We've got it about the thickness that I want to keep it. So now, just with the palm of my hand, I'm going to start pulling out and guiding with my fingers on the outside, and I'm trying to do this kind of towards me, to where you don't lose a visual of what I'm trying to do here. Now, another thing that's really important at this point too is, like I said, about pulling away too fast, jerking your hand away, because with all that weight up top, it can really throw quickly. The other thing is not to allow this to get too far away from that base. If I get too far out here, this weight will be too heavy for the fin that I've got at the bottom, and it'll collapse on us. So it's important to pull that out, but keep enough support underneath it to where it doesn't fall. Don't get too vertical out. Or too horizontal out. The next thing is to always maintain that, like I said, pull it slow, Keep it nice and wet so you don't get any dry spot drags. As you come around and pull this out, after a while you'll notice that you'll start getting a dry spot, and it'll drag your finger, drag your finger, drag your finger, and if you allow that to continue, it can really screw you up. Okay, so that's about the size that we want. It's got a nice heavy thickness to it. But on the outside and on the inside, I've got places where my fingers are branded. So I use a really nicely, evenly curved rib. And all I'm going to do is, with the support of my fingers on the outside, I'm just going to kind of parallel that to just make this something that's easy to clean. Doesn't have like ridges that food's going to get stuck in, and it won't clean up easy, and it just looks good. It is appealing as well. And I like, my personal taste is, I like a bowl that has kind of like a ring up here near the top. So I'm going to use my metal rib, and I can just manipulate that rib. I can either go super straight, or I can bend it and use that bend on the curve of my bowl to really clean things up. So I just curve that and allow that to help me out. And then I just stop kind of short right there. And just let that naturally kind of start. Then I use another rib that's got a much straighter edge, and generally a lot cleaner when I pull it off my shelf. And again, using my fingers in parallel, I just create that lip that kind of outer edge that I want. Now that outer edge, I've taken the liberty. We use a wet chamois, and that helps dress that lip. Okay, so now quickly, before we lose our battery, I want to do a little bit of decoration on this. So I'm going to wet my finger down, and just on that upper lip, I'm going to make sure that we're nice and wet. And have a sponge help me out a little bit. There we go. Okay, so I have taken the liberty of mixing up some slip or slurry. You'll hear it called either one, slip or slurry. It's basically, I've just mixed up really diluted clay into a little jar of mine, and I'm going to use a paintbrush, and I've pre-done these little triangles. I don't know if you can see those. And so all I'm going to do is use a little bit of slurry on the back of that, and then I'm just going to choose a spot. I kind of use the lug spots on my bat. So there's one right there. So I'm just going to put that right against that. Let it just sit right there. Now I'm going to spin my wheel around to my next lug deal. And if I'm above the other one, then I know that this one's right there too. And same process. A little bit of slurry. Just paint it right on the back of that. Place it right. There's my lug. Right there. Now the only thing that I'm really going to worry about too much at this point is that I've got it at the same height, because I don't want it to be too funky looking. Okay, so now 90 degrees out is pretty much right here in front of me. But I moved it over here, so there's one here, one here. Our next one's going to go right there. So a little bit of slurry. Don't want to go too heavy on the slurry because it can ooze out. And especially where I pulled this from my bucket over there where all my chips and scraps go, if I ooze out too much, you can see it's a different color because it came from the bucket. The bucket is just a collage of a bunch of different clays. They're all the same. They all fire at the same temperature. They're all cone low fires or cone 06s. But there's that one right. Looks like right there. So I mean, it'll fire okay and everything, but if you ooze out too much or let too much squeeze out, it'll be hard to clean up later when you're dressing your pot. And what I consider dressing your pot is later, just before you fire. I always try to go around and just analyze everything about the piece of pottery about to go. Now we're going to quarter those quarters there. And I'll use just a collage of tools, sandpaper, all kinds of different stuff to just kind of clean any imperfections or rough spots or anything like that that I don't like, and I sure as heck don't want in the bisque fire. If I allow it to fire that way, then it's achieved vitrification, and vitrification is the melting of all that silica. So it's now glass, and then now you're talking about using a grinder or some high-speed tool to get all that, to get any imperfections off. So it's a lot easier to do while it's green. Two more. Oh, nope, you know what? We're done. One more. Uno más. About there, I'd say. Okay, so those are on, and now all we're going to do is a little bit of decoration. Seems like our kitchen has a lot of blues and yellows in it. I don't know if it's because I like blues and yellows, and I've made a lot of pottery that is in there. So I'm going to use some yellow. I'm just going to real simply band on the outside here. I'll step up the wheel speed a little bit once I get the band established. Where it's a bowl, I mean, you want it to be aesthetically pretty on the outside. But I also kind of like to decorate the inside, you know, especially if you're standing there looking at stuff or mixing over it or something. I kind of like to have it to where it's got some decoration on the inside. So for the inside, oh geez, you can't see that at all. But typically, all I'll do is just, let me try to move that camera up to where maybe you can see inside. I don't know if that's going to work or not. If you can see in there or not. I hope so. Anyhow, generally is all I try to do is just some, I don't know, fancy schmartsy stuff. Just some brush strokes. I wish I had a lot better brushes. Someday I'll buy some. Maybe the brush fairy will come by and get me some. I know it looks like hell right now, but then when I add another color, man, I hate these brushes. Now you can see that at the bottom there's getting to be a pretty good collection of this colored slip. what's cool about that is I can use something just as simple as the tip of a feather. I hope you can see this. But just the tip of this feather, kind of cleaned up, and I just kind of let it drag in the middle. And I just slowly let those colors blend. I just slowly kind of drag it up. And I just drag it all the way up. If it can catch something, that's great. And then, for the upper bit, I'm just going to take and there you go. Hope you can see that. I'll pick up the camera to where you know you can see it. And that is the instruction on making a mixing bowl. Later, as these dry up, I'll clean off the little bits around them, and I may even put a little bit of blue on the bottom. But in the interim, we just let it sit, dry, think about life, and how good it is, because it used to be just a lump of clay. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it, guys.